Okay, well, let's move on. I got about an hour's worth of material I'm going to cover in 35 minutes, as much as I can, and some of that will be repeat. This is kind of getting back a little bit to the programmatic side of things. The water quality management plan template and the non-priority project work plan. What are those tools? What have we done with them? What have you looked at? So we've talked about the fact that these cover these pretty quickly. I think I pretty much covered the issue of the priority and non-priority projects category, and I know there's one comment came up at the break about, a whole lot of projects that come through what we would normally call the ministerial projects, where there is really it's a permit by right type project. Those should not have to be covered by this plan at all. If you have if your city, you look at those as there's some discretion to try to, when Adam Fisher comes around, don't talk about them as discretionary projects. They are ministerial projects. That's what we're trying to cover. So there is a lot that we believe that do not fall in the priority projects category, that are also not non-priority projects. We talked about, this is the same definitions that have been in your DAMP for a number of years, and the permit links back to them. We also now added, because as I said before, the Santa Ana board added this notion that below ground linear utility projects somehow are going to have to be covered with a non-priority project plan as well, but all other ministerial projects, our view, I think the permit and the WQMP does not, there's nothing overt in there that would say that any of these other kinds of day-to-day smaller building, small grading, single lot, all kinds of permit by right do not have to be covered and do not have to be brought into the new development program at all. Okay, the template. Okay, there has been various forms of template around in the past. There's been you've all used, many of you use them. It is intended to sort of standardize the process, to contain references and links back and forth. It can be adapted, but it should have all the basic pieces in it. The same sections that have been around in templates that some of you have been using are still part of the new template. You can see those. They clearly link up with the similar steps in the process in the model WQMP. So you gather the basic information, places to put them in the template. The template has a lot of it is just blocks of information, leads you to say, look at the water quality management plan or the guidance document to figure out details of how to fill them in, but this is the places where they go. Key information that has to be developed. Each one of these has a place in the template to put in. It guides the user, the developer of the template, to fill these in. The site description. Same things we've been talking about before. There are places for it. There's language in the template that walks them through what goes in there. The big section of the template, the largest single section of the template, and the one that has been expanded most from the versions that have been out there before, is this stepping through a project proponent to select BMPs. And there are tables that goes through the hierarchy of lit BMPs that we've been talking about, from infiltration to harvest and use to biotreat and release, and then finally last but is treat and release before you get to the alternative programs. But each one of those has the tables to check and a place that says, did you meet, and then you demonstrate in the template, did you meet the design water quality volume? These are the ones I've used. Here's the calculations to show whether or not I met it. If the answer is yes, you don't have to go, you can then skip the rest of the next several pages of the template and go on and finish the process of selecting source control BMPs, putting in your O&M plan, your maintenance, etc. Okay. If the answer is no, there is a place in which you have to show, using the guidance that Eric was talking about, why this project cannot feasibly meet the design quality volume with lead BMPs. In some cases, it may be simple. If your site is in D soils, or if it's over a water quality plume area, and the template and the guidance shows why you can say it is not feasible to do infiltration, those can be a fairly simple feasibility test. If it's not so simple, and it's an issue of how much site you have and so forth, you have to go through the process. So it sets up the ability to link from the feasibility criteria section of the guidance document. Then place, of course, it'll say, is it a project street or road facility? Then you're going to have different guidance. Is there an approved plan? That may set up different criteria. So those choices are in there, leading the project proponent through the selection process. Select the BMPs, do the plot plan, do the drainage management area characteristics. So a site may be small, maybe one drainage management area. It may be a much larger development with 2 or 3 or multiple directions in which water may flow off the site. Each one of those has to be broken down and show how you've met them for all of those. And then you calculate that. Then you do this conformance analysis. That's what I was just talking about. Identify the BMPs to be used and whether or not they can comply with the feasibility criteria. Stepping through sequentially each of the major categories of BMPs. And if you have a project in which hydromodification issues, downstream susceptibility is going to be a factor, then you also, there's a section in the template in which you describe what the project will do to address the hydromodification issues. So you address one or more BMPs to demonstrate compliance with the criteria. And then finally identifying the structural and non-structural source control BMPs. So the template very much lines up with the model WQMP. It provides a tool to capture the steps, the process, and so forth for an individual project. If that project is not feasible for that project to meet the criteria, that's basically the capture volume for most projects, with lid and or treatment control BMPs, then there's a place in the template. Next step in the template is for the project proponent to then describe what the alternative approach is going to be or proposed to be. Of course, if you get down to that stage where the project proponent believes it's not feasible to do anything else, is proposing to utilize some kind of an off-site project, we'll be preparing and filing a waiver. We'll be describing in that what the alternative approach that the project is going to be used. And the waiver, as I said before, goes to the permittee, but a copy goes to the regional board staff for them. And there is a 30-day window. I think maybe I said that before. Basically, it's alerting regional board staff that the permittee intends to, or at least the developer is requesting the permittee to approve the waiver and approve an alternative to lid approaches. And the regional board staff doesn't have to do anything, don't have to act on it, or they may choose not to act on it, which is fine. It essentially gives approval for the permittee then to approve the plan. But you have to be sure to review the plan that it is consistent with the model WQMP. The inspection and maintenance responsibilities for BMP, pretty much similar to before. Of course, you know that there has to be a maintenance mechanism identified. How that's going to be done depends upon the long-term ownership of the site, whether there's a HOA or some kind of an organization that's going to, and O&M plan. Every new development with BMPs has to have an O&M plan. You have to review that as part of the project. It becomes a attachment to the plan, and that at a minimum the O&M plan and certain things need to be recorded with the project. Okay, site and plan and drainage plan and electronic data submittal. Some of you require, some of you use electronic submittals. The WQMP template does not require a specific form of submittal. Encourages submittal requirements, and that's something you can tweak as permittees in terms of how you want to manage the information and file it and have it in your system. And of course, educational material is one thing that was coming on before. So the way this template is set up, there are a whole lot of kind of county-based or program-based materials that may be applicable and need to be passed on to the homeowners or the HOAs and so forth. But if they're county standard materials, they don't have to be attached to the document. You don't have to load the WQMP up with thick appendix of materials that are already available through the website. But if there's anything unique or specific to the development for any O&M materials, those have to be attached. So that's really kind of a quick overview of what's now in the template. We're making a few tweaks. We even got a few comments recently, and a few from last. So we'll have a final template out very shortly. There's a template for the non-priority project water quality plans. And of course, we've kind of talked about when this kicks in and when it doesn't. It is another much more simple template. It looks a lot like those of you who may have used one before. It hasn't changed drastically. We've called it a plan now rather than a checklist. It goes through the same sourcing, and a permit or a project proponent would have to document site design and source control BMPs. Those are the primary ones that are still required to be documented. There is no requirement to do a quantitative assessment of how much is being captured. That is not, the permit doesn't require that, so the template doesn't require that. So this non-priority project plan has similar, it mimics, but in a much simpler fashion without the rigor of the water quality template, management template. The site design BMPs are similar to the ones that would be looked at and incorporated, but there is no mandatory requirement to incorporate any or all or some of these. So that's a real quick run through of these two templates that are available, and the final versions will be up and posted here shortly. Yes?
Standardized O&M language, is there anything like that in the agreement? Okay.
Not really. Not really. I mean, there is, the WQMP has a certain amount of language in it. It's not a lot different from what was in there before in terms of what needs to be included in an O&M plan. But there hasn't been a significant modification or expansion upon that. What is different, of course, a lot of the BMPs will be different. So you won't have a lot of developments come in with a CDS unit or some kind of a treatment. The lid BMPs, that there is a certain amount of O&M language. I think, Eric, if I'm right, in the fact sheets for the lid BMPs, I think there is some discussion about appropriate O&M in there, but we haven't done any kind of expanded, updated template, if you will, for an O&M plan. Yeah. Okay.